All right. Greetings from the southern tip of Texas. I live in Harlingen, Texas. My name is Mark Phipps. I am a new Christian, only 6 years now. I'm going to be focusing on the unchurched ministries and homeless ministries, and you're probably about to find out why. I'm not going to cuss or anything, I promise. But what we have going on here is I did, as you can see, the Developing Diversity, Chapter 7. I've always been fascinated by this, with the various cultures, the various sects, the various groups, all the different things that Jesus had to work through and work with when he was doing his ministry. And of course, the period of Acts, where we see the issues that were, going on socially, politically, all kinds of stuff. So it's always been something that I've been interested in, so I'm excited to get started here. Now, the actual fracturing of Judaism started with a religious crisis. It started with Onias III lost the high priest position to his brother Jason due to a bribe to the Seleucid emperor Antiochus IV Epiphanes in 175 BC. The emperor Antiochus did not realize that the high priest thing was actually kind of an important position. It had a lot of tradition, it had a lot of genealogy, it had a lot of heritage, it was based upon families, and yeah, it didn't go so hot. So he thought it was just some random chump that the king appointed, and so he took a bribe, and there they were. Jason then lost the high priesthood to yet another bribe from Menelaus after ousting the traditional theocracy. So all the old guard and all those guys got the boot. So if you can only imagine how much that would be if, like, all of a sudden the Pope got kicked out or something crazy like that, it would just be what's going on, and that caused a lot of the fragmentation here, along with the Maccabees crisis. All right. Now, Menelaus then had the original high priest, Onias III, assassinated, just to make sure, when I do this, I mean it. Okay. Now, Menelaus' brother, Lysimachus, stole some holy vessels from the temple and was killed in the resulting riots. All right. Jason bribed his way out of trouble for killing Onias, and drove out Menelaus to become high priest again. So you can kind of get an idea. There's a lot of moving parts going on here. All right. Now, Antiochus pillaged the temple, attacked Jerusalem, and led the captive women and children in 168 BC. So he kind of turned on the Hebrews after all and took care of business there. All right. Now, then we get to Herod the Great. Okay. Now, the Maccabeans did what every revolutionary that is successful does. They don't win by winning. They win by not losing. By holding out long enough, eventually the empires and the other groups were getting busy with something else, and we're free now. So it worked out great. Of course, that's also where Hanukkah comes from. All right. The Hasmonean priest kings ruled Judea from 140 to 63 BC. Okay. Herod defeated them in the 3-year war from 40 BC to 37 BC. It became the official Roman vassal state in Palestine. Okay. And the Hasmonean threat, Aristobulus III, assassinated in 35 BC. Aristobulus was attempting to get Mark Antony and Cleopatra to let him be king again, when they were starting to dust up with Octavian, who later became Augustus Caesar when he defeated Cleopatra and Mark Antony. All right. Herod the Great actually chose the wrong side. He chose Antony over Octavian. And when Octavian became Augustus, he convinced him to allow him to keep the rule of Judea, saying, hey, I'm just going to keep things running nice and smooth. Actually, he did a lot of secret police stuff. He was actually pretty good politically. He was ruthless as heck. I mean, he was Stalin-esque. He was anybody who was causing any kind of trouble, they got squished. No worries. Okay. There are a lot of people who fell out of balconies and killed themselves by stabbing themselves in the back 6 times around Herod's time. Okay, so but he also didn't make a lot of the Sadducees and Pharisees not very happy because he didn't focus on any one thing. You know, he'd be doing the Jewish thing for a while and making the Jews happy, and then he'd start doing Roman stuff again. You know, so he's kind of playing this tight wire here in between the groups. He actually did a fairly good job, all things considered. I mean, it's a very, very complex situation he was dealing with. Now, the Pharisees are the group that, of course, are the boogeymen of the Bible, right? Jesus spends a lot of time slapping these guys around verbally, just really runs them through the ringer here. You know, you're clean on the outside, but filthy in the inside. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff, right? So the thing we need to keep in mind here is that the Pharisees were actually very zealous for God. Okay, they were not anti-God at all. They just wanted it to be pure, you know. They wanted to help maintain the Jewish faith. There's a lot of cultural warfare going on. There's a lot of Roman influences and all kinds of stuff that was causing all kinds of problems for the Jews. So they wanted very much to maintain the Jewish heritage. So when Paul described himself as the Jewishest Hebrew to ever do the Jew as a Pharisee, he wasn't joking. Okay, he was doing it. He was very serious about that kind of stuff at the time there. Now, they did believe in bodily resurrection and free will plus divine guidance. Okay, what that means is basically humans have the ability to choose the decisions that they want to make, and God will turn history and events to serve his purposes. So that's something to keep in mind there. Now, they were generally popular with the people. These guys were the defenders of the faith, as it were. They helped maintain the Jewish heritage. Okay, they did maintain temple level priestly cleanliness. So they were very strict on that kind of stuff there. They were the unofficial teachers and a large part of the Israeli revolutionary history. So if there was ever some kind of a dust up between the Jews and one of their other guys that they were dealing with, it was always the Pharisees or the guys who started before the Pharisees involved. You know, they were the guys who were always, remember Hanukkah, boys, because the Jews will rise again. All right. Now, the Essenes were another sect. We don't really hear about them much in the Bible, but I wouldn't be surprised if John the Baptist was a part of these guys here. They lived in the desert by the Dead Sea in communal living, very austere living. They did not have property. They shared everything. They did not eat meat. They bathed ritually every day. I mean, these guys were really very much there. Now, these guys were also likely started in response to the traditional high priest getting ousted for the Hasmonean priest kings when the Maccabees War ended. Okay, they didn't go back to the original traditional guys at all. They went, no, we're the high priests, we're the kings. We're gonna be like every other king out there at the time for the most part. And of course, you know, a lot of folks were not happy with that. They strongly believed that the temple was corrupt. Okay, and it probably was. You know, they were the true temple. They were the true Jewish people. They were the true faith. They are the light, and literally everybody else was the darkness. There is us and there is everybody else. You know, they did not do that. Now, the thing that Herod really liked is that they were never involved in revolt. So he had at least somebody that he did not have to worry about trying to make him wake up with his throat slit. So Herod actually liked him so much he gave them the Essene quarter in Jerusalem for a while. Now, the priests, aristocrats, and Sadducees did not believe in bodily resurrection and free will only. They were very conservative. They just wanted things to keep on going the way that they are. Don't make waves. You know, we're not going to innovate just to innovate here, okay? You know, we need to keep this thing going or Rome's going to come in and squish us. Okay, they survived largely on ties with the priests and Sadducees, so you can imagine how impressed they were when 3,000 people suddenly stopped going to the temple for their ritual sacrifices on Pentecost. Hit somebody in the wallet, they start taking it personal real fast. Okay, they taught the law to the populace, the priests did. They were judges and arbitrators of the culture. If you had a problem, you didn't want Rome involved, you had to talk to the priests. Okay, they had the most to lose if things went south, especially the aristocrats. The landowners, of course, taxed people as heavily as they could. They tried to keep Rome happy. They exploited their wealth to take advantage of the poor, all kinds of stuff like that. Same kind of stuff we're seeing here, you know, today. They were a little more blatant about it, though. Okay, and they didn't have a culture that kind of supported greed, like we do. So if there was a revolution, they would of course support the empires, Roman, whatever, until it got pretty close to being obvious that the rebels were going to win, and then hey, I'm a rebel. They were very efficient that way. All right. Now we get to to the ordinary Jews. Okay, like what you hear in the Bible, and you don't really get a firm idea of this. They really did care about God, their scripture, and their Jewish heritage. Once you get outside of Jerusalem, where everything is Jewish with a capital Jewish, okay, then what you end up having is you start running into a lot more culture warfare, a lot more of those border fences. Hey, this is a line. I'm a Jew, you're not, And if you want to see problems, you're going to see it outside of Jerusalem more than you're going to see it within Jerusalem, because those fences have to be kept in good repair, right? Okay, they prayed and fasted and went to synagogue. All right, they traveled to Jerusalem for the major feasts. They abstained from pork. They circumcised their sons and respected their Pharisees as unofficial teachers to make sure these duties were fulfilled in a Pharisaic fashion, basically correctly according to Jewish tradition and all that. So got to keep in mind that the guys were typically actually fairly pious, all things considered. As long as they weren't out raping and murdering and doing all kinds of crazy stuff like that, they were pretty cool. Okay, with the normal Jewish things that you would expect, and maintaining the same Jewish traditions there. They didn't like Gentiles. They wanted the Messiah to come. They wanted to be free from the yoke of Rome. They wanted the good days to come, from Isaiah and all that. All right. Well, I appreciate your patience and thank you for watching. And all of you have yourselves an excellent rest of your day. Take care.